So I just found out that Phasmophobia has released their VR overhaul, and that got me thinking about something I wanted to talk about with our audience.
Okay.
And that is considering when you're creating your project, creating both a flat screen and a VR version and the challenges that come with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're seeing a lot more cross-play nowadays. You know, people who can play, whether they're on a PlayStation account or an Xbox account or a Steam account or whatever. But what about cross-play between non-VR and virtual reality? Because we've said this before and it bears repeating. VR is not a fad that's going to go away. It is going to become a part of mainstream technology if it isn't already becoming that. It is easier and cheaper to afford every day. Our audience members, some of them have actually gotten their headsets.
Yes.
And are learning about the awesome world of virtual reality.
Well, there's so much more now on the horizon with VR besides just a game.
Yeah. Right.
Or a hangout world.
Yeah.
There's there's parties, there's movies that you can watch in VR.
Yeah.
There's just it's incredible.
It really is.
Marketplace, buying and selling.
Yeah.
Walking into a VR store and purchasing something.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all on the horizon. It's all coming.
Right. And please understand, we're not talking specifically about one technology. There's a lot of things going on with Meta and NFTs and all this stuff that some people think is absolute garbage and other people think it's the greatest thing, whatever. We don't care about that. We're talking about virtual reality as a way of accessing virtual worlds where it's highly immersive. That tech's not going away.
No, it's not.
So because of that, what I want to talk about is making your game both VR and non-VR accessible, a VR version and a non-VR version. There are challenges with this.
Yes, there are.
Because I have played, thank you Viveport, some terrible VR games that were obviously not made with the understanding of how virtual reality games work. You know, whether the hands were badly positioned, whether the frame rate was shite and it was literally crashing my computer, which is built for VR. You know, it's like, this was not a VR game. This was a game you designed in Unreal or Unity and slapped in a VR player controller and tried to sell me on it.
Ouch.
So
that doesn't work.
If you're going to create your game that has a VR version or a VR port, you need to build up from the ground up the VR part of the game, like Phasmo did, like Vrchat did, you know, and then have your desktop version, your non-VR version, be the non-VR version of it. You know, I would almost say, Teal, that you should build your virtual reality version of the game first and have that work so that you can interact with the virtual world, so that you can pick up the things you pick up, you can interact with and throw and load your gun or whatever, and create the VR version of your game first so that it has that framework and the way the physics and everything work, and then create the flat screen version.
I can tell you put a lot of thought into this.
I did.
And I honestly think that, you know, just from the outset that's a really good plan, because there's a lot more programming and coding that goes into the VR version. And I think it'd be, once you had that all established and you had your VR version of the game, it'd be a lot easier to come back behind it and go, okay, here's the flat screen version.
Right.
And it's a lot easier to code. It's what I call the classic mode of the game. And so many of your assets are already there. You just put them in and have your control as the keyboard and keyboard and mouse.
There you go.
Or joystick
or gamepad, whatever, right? Whatever the input is. And I actually agree with that. I agree with that. Let's look at Vrchat. This is actually a really good example. Vrchat was built with virtual reality in mind. And I'm not talking about the worlds. We have been into a number of worlds in this thing in Vrchat that have obviously not been made with VR in mind. It's very obvious. Yeah. But the program, the application Vrchat itself, is built with VR in mind. And you can tell when you're moving around, when you're grabbing things, the way pickup objects work, the way sitting works. You can tell they put that effort into it. And then the flat screen version, they changed the interface. Pardon me. They changed how you operate things because you just click on it with your mouse. As AOD said, I was surprised by how much fun I could have with just flat screen. Yeah, it is fun to play Vrchat in flat screen. But you can tell looking at this program that they put the thought into the VR version first and then added the flat screen. That was the biggest issue that we had with Phasmophobia for the longest time. Was Phasmophobia was originally meant to be a VR game, and they made a flat screen version for the longest time. Sorry guys, I'm not shitting on you. If you're a developer of Phasmophobia, we do love your game. However, for the longest time, you ignored virtual reality and disenfranchised your players. And because of that, yes, some of your player base has moved on, others have stayed. But if you had from the very beginning built all of these functions in Phasmo for virtual reality, and then used that and pushed to flat screen a more simplified in-game interface, I think there would have been a lot less issues and a lot more people would have stayed around. I know we would have definitely not broken from Phasmophobia nearly as much as we did. Yeah, I'm willing to go back in and give it a shot, but I haven't played Phasmo in 3 months because of that very reason. You know? So I think the whole point of this diatribe is, I really think you developers out there who are creating a 3D game, if you're going to go with a VR port, and I think you should heavily consider making the VR thing the first thing you do, and then go into flat screen. But now, Teal, should you even make a VR port of your game? Is that something that every developer should think about, or just some? What do you think on that?
I'm going to frame this in terms of accessibility.
Okay.
You want your game to be playable by as many people as possible, i.e. accessibility.
Right.
And it makes sense to create a VR version of the game and a flat screen version of the game.
Right.
Now, having said that, some games do better in VR.
I agree.
And some games do better in flat screen.
I agree there too.
So you need to take a look at your game and decide, would this do well in both? Or is this game primarily going to showcase the best in one or the other?
Exactly. A good example, a really good example. And I know a lot of people who are fans of the Half-Life property were pissed. But honestly, having played Half-Life Alyx a dozen times, the game would not play well in its state at all. A flat screen port wouldn't play well because the game on the ground up was built to be in a VR headset. So they would have to rebuild the game on a very fundamental level for it to work on flat screen. And it wouldn't work. A good example of one that ported well after it was modified was Skyrim.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a player of Skyrim VR, what's up? If you haven't played Skyrim VR and you have a headset, you should. Once the game was modded, Skyrim VR became an amazing way to experience this world because it lended itself to it. And it should. Skyrim VR should exist. However, there are some games I don't think I would play. I would not want to play 7 Days to Die in VR. I don't think it would work well. It's too platformy. It's too platformy.
Yeah.
Another one that I think I wouldn't want to play in virtual reality, in any of the Resident Evil games that as they currently exist, you'd have to rebuild Resident Evil in VR. I think they did that with Resident Evil 4. So it was actually built into it. But as it currently stands, like just having Resident Evil 2 Remake put into a VR version, I don't know if that would work. I'd have a hard time working with that, thinking would that actually function properly.
So that goes back to my point, is think about your game.
Yeah.
Would it play well in VR?
Right.
Or does it just play better in flat screen?
Right.
If your game would play well in both platforms, then consider developing in both platforms.
There you go. And if you really want to make a virtual reality experience for your game, consider releasing 2 separate ports completely. And this is one of my issues with a game that I love, although I can't play. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. That game is incredible. I don't really feel anything for the VR port of that game because it's literally, you're still controlling Senua right over her shoulder. It's a right over her shoulder third person, and you're using the controller, and then you can look around, you know, but you're not looking from Senua's point of view. A VR game should be a first person game unless you're controlling someone with a stick like in Moss, or you're helping another character get through something like in Republic, you know. But normally a VR game is best suited in a first person format, and definitely not over the shoulder like Hellblade.
No, not over the shoulder.
Yeah.
I've played different escape room games. Some were VR. They had VR versions and flat screen versions, and some of these games just don't do well in VR. Yeah. They just don't. I don't want to pick on one particular series because all of them have a bit of an issue, but if you're going to design a game like that, you need to pick a platform and design primarily for that platform.
Agreed.
A lot of these games that I've played look terrible in VR.
Yes.
And there was one VR game where it was just the opposite. It was great in VR and it was horrible on flat screen. I literally could not turn around in flat screen. Right. I had to walk backwards.
Yeah, I remember I remember you talking about that game. And it was very frustrating because in the virtual reality port of that game, it was so perfect.
Yes.
You know? And I think that comes down to it. I think if I was going to give some advice to you all, is if you're developing a VR game, make sure that from the very get-go that it's taking VR interactivity, viewing, frame rate, optimization, the whole everything.
All of it.
From a VR standpoint. And then afterwards, if you're going to go with a flat screen version, then all you're really doing at that point is changing the interaction. And a couple of things here and there, you know, but it's a lot. I think it's a lot easier to go VR, non-VR than the other way around.
Right. I mean, you're just going to change how the end user interfaces with the game.
Yeah.
But test that interface.
Right.
Please test the interface. Oh my God.
Yes, please.
I don't like walking backwards.
Right. Now, there's no genre limitation on a VR game for all of you who are looking at it.
No, there is not. Thankfully.
Yes. I have even seen a turn-based JRPG in virtual reality.
Yes, JRPGs. You know, you think that flat cartoony style would suck in VR? Not on your life.
With a turn-based battle system and a menu you select, it can happen. It can happen. Innovation is really the key to doing new things and finding a new way of doing something. So you're only limited as a developer by your imagination. Somebody in the chat is mentioning an RPG Maker game. With the right plugin, yes, you'd have to make sure that the headset can look all the way around and see the room in or whatever in RPG Maker. You have to be sure you can see it. Because if you're snap turning in VR, everybody gonna get sick.
God, yeah.
Everybody gonna get sick. So,
first person camera is the way to go in VR. Unfortunately, there are some VR games where it was third person, and it was horrible. It was just terrible to play.
Except for the ones that are specifically built to be that, like Lucky's Tale and Moss. Lucky's Tale, you play the little fox. Moss, you play the mouse. Those games are incredible, but they were built to be, you're looking down at almost godlike at the world, and you're using the thumbstick to move the little mouse or the little fox around. But those games were built specifically to be like that. Games like Senua's Sacrifice, where it was a 2D game. A 2D game, a flat screen game, and they just put the camera over the shoulder. No, I agree with you. That's terrible. Don't do it.
Roxy's asking if the FromSoft VR game Derastine was ever released.
I have not heard that it's ever been released. If someone in chat or on the comments can correct me, that would be awesome. If you're talking about From Software, the people that did Dark Souls, holy shit, that sounds cool. If it's something else, that's what else it's. I now want to see VR Dark Souls. So there it is.
That's on you.
Somebody make that. Aww.
You can do that. I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't step foot in there.
Boo. All right. So at the end of the day, that's how you can tell Steel's wrapping up. At the end of the day, virtual reality is a technology that's going to only keep growing.
Yeah.
There it is. However, it's up to each developer who's going to create a VR game to take into account that virtual reality is a very different experience than being on a flat screen. And you have to design your game so that any person who has the headset and the controllers feels like they're immersed in the world and not like they're just observing it. So let us know in the comments what you think. Do you agree, disagree? Is there something we haven't even thought of?
Because there probably is.
There probably is. And if you don't have a VR headset and you're thinking about looking to getting into it, right now is the best time ever with things like the Quest 2. And it's just so accessible, and we do recommend it.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. All right, so if you like what you saw, lay that smack down the like button below, subscribe to our channel, consider supporting us on Patreon, connect with us over Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and we will see you in the next video.
See you next time.